this out, and I hope Josue gets this live. So we're actually live, guys. Take this out. We're actually live on LinkedIn, live on Facebook, and live on what else, Josue? Trying to remember.
On YouTube.
And YouTube, right? So we'll see how this goes, and we'll see how that kind of expansion looks like. But excited. So again, an agile. We started with a leadership journey of discovery. I know we use the word agile, but I think to me it's more than just agile. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of this journey for me. Okay. How do we deal with questions? If the group stays small like this, we could have mute ourselves if we needed to just ask a quick question. Or Marcelo does such an amazing job in the chat. So if you have any questions, just put something in the chat, and Marcelo's probably going to answer before I even say anything, right? So that's another option for you. But we'll play it out as we go through this. Cool? You guys hear me okay? You see the screen okay? Is there anything blocking us? No? We got some thumbs up? All right, spectacular. So there we go. I mean, just the first picture kind of scares me already from looking at this, right? That's the kind of mood switch. And it's interesting that the mood wasn't just like, okay, I feel great. Okay, I'm puzzled. Okay, things are going crazy. It was actually an up and down battle. Like there were days that went well and there were days that didn't go that well, right? But that,
in progress.
oh, there you go.
Stopped.
Recording, go ahead, Marcy. Go ahead,
Recording in progress.
All right, so I'm here again to talk about my book, The Agile Leadership Journey of Discovery. So excited to finally get the book out. So there it is, guys. You know, this is big. I know it looks so small, and this is actually 8 years. So I was at IPC for a while, 2010 to 2018. So this is kind of talking about 8 years kind of condensed. And there was a lot more learnings, but I focused on more the leadership part of it. I focused more on the people aspect of it. I thought that was the most important part to have a conversation on, right? So continuing down this conversation, if you look at myself, again, my name is Rick. I told you a little bit about that. It's all about the family for me, and it's all about mastering continuous improvement. So that's really true to my heart, and work through that. The journey has been long. And it's taken a lot of steps, to kind of move through that journey. But if you think about it, I started in this journey as a project coordinator all the way up to owning my own business. That roadmap, I would not take it back for anything. It was such an amazing experience. I grew as a person. I grew my career. I grew everything. But those relationships that I established, those people that I still humbly remember, and they're still here today. So that to me is a very big impact. I can tell you that this is a leadership discovery journey, but the leaders that were there wasn't just about me. It was about them showing me. I had a lot of mentors help me through that journey. So you'll hear a lot about them as I talk through this, but some of them are here today. So if you see Fernando, Stephen, even Veronica, understand your showcase what professionalism looks like, right? So those are things that I take very, very, true to me, right? Those are things that I want to improve in myself. So these are a lot of people here that really owe all the credit to. So understand that that's a journey, and I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that, and then, of course, pause a little bit, maybe even challenge you a little bit like I normally do. So let's keep going. Here we go. So Agile Transformation Journey. All right. So where did it all start? I'm understand that this is 2010, and some of you don't even remember where you were in 2010. You probably remember where you were in 2000, so the 2000, craziness. But 2010 was a major challenge for me. I left the company that I used to be a senior project manager, right? So the responsibilities that I had as a senior project manager and the responsibilities of being a so-called PMP. I don't know if any of you guys had your PMP, so that's your project management professional. Sometimes people call it your pimp. As you see a picture of me being a pimp there, you're like wondering, why is Rick bringing up a pimp outfit out there, right? So a lot of the things that I learned at that time were really difficult to expand to companies that really had a different culture. What I learned early in project management was something that I remember a coach telling me, what you need to be is large and in charge, right? That's the way you manage your projects, okay? You're the final call on that. You do whatever it takes to get it to the finish line. And that's what I was taught. That's what I had to look up to. That's what they evaluated me on. So here I am thinking that I knew everything, thinking that I was the coolest guy in the block. You know, that's me, the coolest guy in the block. But inside, that's the way I felt. It was like, what am I doing? Why am I treating people so poorly? I used to drive people to the finish line. That's what I felt. I was driving people. In fact, I'll tell you a very special moment in my life where things were going behind, right? And my schedule, my commitment was not on target. And what did I do? I went to go yell at that person that wasn't producing. So I'm here asking her, why can't you get the requirements in? What's holding you back? And it wasn't like I was listening. I was just finding a weakness to see how I can move that along. It sounds very vicious, guys. And maybe many of you right now might say, Rick, that's not who you are. I've known you for a while. That's not the kind of person you reflect in the people you work with. But it was that I didn't know another way of managing. That's what they taught me. That's how I moved on from there. But it wasn't true to my nature. Like, you got to understand, I'm a family of immigrants. We came to the United States when I was 2 years old. You know, my father gave up everything to come over here and have a better future, right? And my mother and was an amazing role model to me, where she showed me what true, humble professional looks like. But because of this grind of every day, this is what it takes to succeed, it was challenging for me. I had those mixed messages. I can tell you that I even had a point in time that I was having relationship issues. I was having financial issues. And it just felt like this was not where I wanted to be. But yet I projected, like, here's the smile. Look how good Rick is doing. Look how awesome. And yet inside I was dying. So I finally left that job and I found a company called IPC. So Independent Purchasing Cooperative for Subway, right? And my initial view there was, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to figure this out. Even though I was underwater, I was somehow going to figure it out. Luckily, I had all the skills of a project manager. So I had an interview with this guy named Tony Ronconi. He's very structured. Infrastructure, right? He's very intense, right? So I needed to make sure that I had everything kind of clearly set up, that I have the skills to do this. Which luckily we found a connecting point and I was able to come in, right? So understand there's more to this story. I just give you guys a little bit of a tidbit so you guys can understand where we went through. So I finally got in. I was still doing project management and still grinding, trying to figure out how to do infrastructure projects and all that stuff. There were good people. That's what I loved about this company. There were good people there, and it was a very family-oriented company. Like, you could hear it. They wanted to do better. And this is, again, the struggles that we get. Imagine wanting to do better, but not having the tools to be able to do better, right? So that was one of the struggles. We wanted to figure things out, but how could we do that? So along the way came this, what I call the turning point, right? So I don't know if some of you are aware of so George LaBelle, right? So he was the CIO at the time. And one of the things he did, which was, again, very shocking. I know some of you guys are working with Agile and doing some of these things. That's great. For us, it was sort of new. And they were telling us that we were going to go Agile the next following day. George comes in and says, hey, read this book, and you're going to go ahead and go Agile the next following day. That was tremendously scary for me, right? I'm here, don't tell anybody, I'm here fixing my resume, trying to make sure that I'm okay, because I didn't know what this meant for us project management, right? So that was a challenge. Dealing with the unknowns, the uncertainties, those were tough. I'm going to take a pause right now a second. And I'm going to ask some of the team members that were here and just see what their opinion was. And I'm going to see if you're okay with it. Just curious, when you first heard of that, hey, we're going Agile, what was going through your mind? So I would love, I don't know, Steven or Fernando, if any of you guys want to unmute yourself just to kind of share that with the group, I would love to hear that. Fernando?
Hey, Rick. Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, it wasn't being scared. I was, if anything, I was curious and maybe a little upset, because if we recall, when we started this whole Agile transformation, the first group that got to jump into that, right, was the software development team, right? There was an issue, right, with productivity and alignment to business outcomes and whatnot. And they were getting all the focus and all the attention. And at the time, I was like, well, wait a minute, we can't just sit around and do nothing. Like, let's figure this out. We can do this just as well. So honestly, that was the first thing. I was just really, really driven by curiosity at the beginning. But then, of course, that implied a lot more changes that I even imagined would actually have in the structure of the team and in the way we thought about leadership, which really, at least for me at the time, leadership wasn't something that I really fully comprehended. It was more management, right? And leadership, like control.
Yeah. And
that was the thing. So as we started jumping into that and then getting exposed to these other things, and that's, I think, where I was like, oh my God, what the heck did we get ourselves into? Yeah.
So he had a better mindset than I did. I can honestly say I was like sweating. I was like, we started a book club as soon as that was said. Like, we were like reading online. We wanted to catch, because remember, we have a fear, and maybe it's a good fear. Like, I don't want to be left behind, and I want to be in front of things so that I can be an asset to the organization, right? So that was a little bit my fear. Steven, I don't know if you want to add, but I have more stuff for you later on, just in case. Go ahead, Steven.
It was a very similar experience. I think you kind of left that element out of the book, that it was chosen to just be performed on a single team, with the idea that it would be an experiment. And then when it was successful, he would spotlight that success, right, and bring it to others. So same as Fernando, I was on the outside looking in, leading what was then called the special project. I know we probably had 100 special projects at the same time, but I had also just got my, you'll have to remind me, it was like I got the approval to go sit for the PMP certification, because you had to document like 2.5 years of prior experience before you could go sit. So I had just received the document and was about to go sit for the PMP, and I never actually did. So I never technically earned it.
So you never became a pimp? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying to the world? Remember, we're recording this.
Never. Although I listened to a lot of 2 Live Crew and Uncle Lou and everybody else, never officially.
All right. Thank you, Steven. Veronica, I don't know, were you working with George at that time when that happened? I'm just trying to remember your position.
No, I wasn't. I came in the tail end, or like the last quarter of 2011. And I remember when they tried to explain that to me. Coming from corporate America all these years, I was like, you're going to go flat how do you do that? I was like, because people are so driven by title and by things like that, that to me, I was like, well, this ain't gonna work, but let's go watch. And look, it did. I think a lot got accomplished,
So,
during that time.
So what Veronica just said was even deeper than that. So it wasn't just saying, hey, we're going to go Agile and read the book. It was like, we're going to go flat. Like he actually said everyone's supposed to be reporting to me, right? So we were like, what? What is going on here? This is so weird. And he also said, hey, everyone that's in an office needs to get out of an office. We need to go work with the teams. That was just crazy. Because remember, I come from traditional project management where I wanted that corner office, that whole mindset of that's what success looks like, right? It was a change for me. I was still trying to adapt to that, to figure that out. So again, an amazing opportunity. But to me, like Fernando said as well, it was an amazing opportunity because now we had to learn something very quickly. And it could be the quicker you learn, the more successful you can be in your industry, right? You can lead that industry with that. And I remember some conversations with George because I was a little confused. And I was like, okay, George, what do you want me to do with this? And I didn't put this in my book, but it was more like he told me, we want a world-class Agile organization. That's all he needed to say to me. Now, I don't know how you guys have company values, and many of you guys probably in your organizations have company values. Do you guys remember what the IPC company values were? Humble professional, right?
That's right.
Make things happen. Franchisee focus. You believe that I don't know how many years have passed and I can still remember that? Is that crazy? Like how many of you can actually remember? Now, what's cool for me, when George told me that, and those three values were then brought up, that's all I needed. I don't feel like I needed any other supervision to know where I wanted to go, what I needed to do for the company. Because as long as I had that in my mind, that's it. No one needed to tell me, Rick, do this. Rick, you should do this. That doesn't mean I didn't ask. That doesn't mean I didn't bring people together, but that was an interesting approach. So again, pretty remarkable that we had that opportunity, but also very scary. As I continued down the journey, we now had to build up the teams. Like Stephen and Fernando just mentioned. First started the so-called development team. Right? They were building that, and we were jealous. Yes, Fernando, I believe we were jealous. We said we had to figure out our way to contribute as well because we wanted to learn. So we were from the infrastructure support, right? That was our world. So we were like, wait a minute, why can't we do our stuff? So that was really interesting, but it's still a big challenge. It's easy to read a book and say, this is how Scrum works, or this is how Kanban works, or this is how Agile, but to actually implement it, guys, that's a different world. And if you don't have the idea that you're going to have to learn and grow every single step of the way, there is no cookie cutter approach. I love one of the things that George did, and I don't know, Stephen, if you ever saw this, but he was going around asking the managers whether they are telling people what to do. He wanted to so much change that hierarchy conversation that he was actually going around and asking people, hey, are you seeing that? That's, again, very awkward, very difficult to kind of deal with. Now, I'm going to tell you that I have my perception. And I'm going to tell you that my perception is wrong. Okay? Because I speak to different people and other people have other perceptions. I just want to make sure you understand that. I'm giving you my biased view of it, and other people have told me, well, this is what I thought, or this is how I felt, right? But it is the story of me kind of figuring this out together, all right? So again, pretty amazing to have that opportunity to do that. And so this was the big break. There's their infrastructure. Fernando, we got to put your picture in there. I don't know why. You must have been late, or I don't know why you didn't go to that gathering, but that was a pretty good gathering. So I don't know. You were playing hooky. I don't know. So the first team that I told you I worked is the Kanban team. And that picture on the right is actually our ugly Kanban board we had. And I don't know how well you guys can see it from your view there. But it's just a bunch of stickies, a bunch of columns. And we're like working with something called Kanban, right? And I'm not going to get into teaching Kanban and all that. You can take Marcelo's class in Kanban if you want, right? I'm just telling you that the first thing that we needed to make sure we do is have things visible. That's it. We wanted to make sure that all the work was at least in one place where we can have a conversation, right? So that was important for us, more than anything else.
Yeah, and I would say, Rick, on the physical boards, there's something visceral, right? It's something that really connects you to the change in what you're trying to do when you have to go and move a sticky from one spot to another. It's completely different from doing something on a digital board. I think that was a really important part of the transformation.
And it's funny, Fernando, when you say that, it makes so much sense for us. But I guarantee you, people that have not done that before, they look at that and say, what do you mean? You're a technology team. What are you doing playing with stickies? You know, it's embarrassing. And in fact, remember, we had people visiting IPC. People would look at our boards and say, what in the world are you guys doing? Like, why do you have all these stickies everywhere? Right? But again, it was an amazing experience to go with the infrastructure team. Understand that because I was still a project manager in my brain, I needed to develop some new skill sets, right? And they were the best team to do that with. They were very open, you know, but I had to earn my stripes. I always like to say that, you know, you have to sweat. If they don't see you sweat, you haven't really earned it. So I don't know if you know, there was a data, you know, what is it? Data warehouse or that we had to move. And I decided to go there, right? Instead of just sitting back at home and submit status reports, right? And I don't know if they liked that I was there, but I was moving computers. I was moving servers, right? And it was like a 2-day craziness of having to move that data warehouse to another location. But it was nice to finally sweat with the team and tell them, hey, I'm here to help whatever it takes. So I think that was a good win. But they were spectacular. They were a spectacular group, and I would never have wanted any other group but that group. I still remember so many those specific incidents that we had, those amazing things that we did. But there's more. Read it on the book, guys. I don't want to go. The other teams that we had were also amazing too. So I finally got into another team. Guess what? I had to interview to get to the other team. Here I am working at IPC, and they're forcing me to interview with another team just to get in. So here I am standing there, and they're asking me questions whether I'm good enough to be part of their team. So again, that culture is different. That learnings are different than what we're accustomed to. As a project manager, nobody had to tell me that they had to interview me before I project managed them. It just wasn't existed. So amazing the accomplishment that the teams did. And these are just few teams. There are other teams that were amazing at IPC, and they did so much for the organization. I don't know, Stephen, if you talk about any of the major accomplishments that you think that they did as a group, how would you summarize that?
You know, for me, it's always going to be more about the people, right? While we did accomplish things, it was how we accomplished it, and it was the fact that we accomplished it together. And as you were describing, right, team members we used to use the term voting each other on or off the island. I don't know whether that was a good expression, but that is the expression we used to use. But it was that premise, right? Like, it's kind of like you described, George. Like, we all wanted to be on a number one team, and we all wanted that number one team to be, you know, dominant in its category. And I think that collective is what, you know, allowed us all to get to that level of super high performance.
Love it. Thank you, Steve. So kind of moving on, and Stephen, I got a picture of you there. I don't know if you remember that one. Yeah.
Tattoos. Yes, I tell that story all the time. That's how committed the team was that we got tattoos of our testing methodology.
So that was the question that I was going to ask everybody to see if they could figure out what this meant. But you gave them the answer already, Stephen. So we have to sync up with this. But so again, think about the humor, think about the fun aspect of this. So if you guys are in Agile, you do guys remember maybe the definition of done, right? Where it's so important to understand when something is finished, right? Because there's always that vagueness. Is it really finished or is it sort of finished, right? So they felt like, hey, let's do something fun, and they tattooed it. I think you still have the tattoo, right? It wasn't something that was permanent, right? I remember that.
Invisible ink.
But there you go, right? So some of you Agile people, that's what they used, right? To kind of put that down. So pretty cool, pretty fun group. Continuing down, guess what we finally did? We started the Agile, the South Florida Agile Association. The same group that you see here. Guys, this was a long time ago. We said, we're going to bring the community together, right? We're going to figure that out. So we started the South Florida Agile Association. And guess what? We actually ran a conference at IPC. So Marcelo, I don't know if you see that middle slide there, but there's a picture of you in there. A really nice, profile picture. Or I don't know how you're slanted a little bit.
Yeah, it's the same picture that appears on LinkedIn 13 years later.
Wow. So IPC was willing to open the door to 200 people to come into their facility and see what Agile looked like, right? So we ran a conference at our location, which everybody was going crazy. You had HR going crazy, where they're going to park, and how we're going to do this, right? So it was kind of like hectic, but we were able to actually run an event at our location, which was really, really, really amazing. So we had a lot of the speakers come from IPC and a lot of people come from the outside. That was nice. I even had Jan speak at the end. So Jan is our CEO at the time, and she actually spoke and closed out the conference, which is pretty amazing to have your CEO actually talk a little bit of Agile. Now, did she do a great job? I think she did enough to at least showcase that she was learning. She was learning, which was really, really inviting. So to me, that's a plus, right? Understand that we were still doing more on top of doing the South Florida Agile Association. We did the conference, and then I also reached out to my favorite PMP pimp, Stephen, the PMI. So you see all those people dressed in red? That was the PMI, and me help coach the PMI so they can learn Agile. Guys, if you ever think you're going to get all the knowledge you need to get just in your company, you're wrong. You need to constantly be reaching out to look for opportunities to grow, right? So that's what we were doing. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to bring also growth into IPC. Hey, see what other people are doing. Let's keep learning. So continuing this venture, again, there you go, Marcelo, a better picture of you. I want to make sure you get, hopefully you still have that, whatever that was that I gave you. I don't know what it was, but it must have been good. Huh?
That is sitting in the console in my living room next to my TV. I literally have that sitting in a shelf on the console next to my TV to this day.
All right, we'll talk about that. All right, so again, pretty cool things. As we continue to grow, then we started this new sort of openness to the community. It was called the IPC experience, right? Where we actually had people from the outside come in, and they would take a whole day to understand how the transformation, how that journey went for us. And we were representing all different roles. So you had Steven speak about the portfolio. You had Fernando speak about infrastructure, right? You had the product owners like Sean and Kellyanne talk about product owner. You got Christina Alonso talking about, hey, this is how Scrum Masters work. You had the development team. Think about pulling a developer to show the community, what does that mean? What kind of investment are we doing, right? QA, you have Bob. I don't know if you guys remember Bob, but Bob is well known in our community. So he was also there from a QA, and very, very, how do I say this? Animated in the way he shows, his love for quality, right? So that was really cool to do that. And then there was a magic question and of course you had George that also kicked it off, which was spectacular. But there was always a magic question that was asked. Why are you guys doing this? What's in it for you? What's in it for you? How do we answer that question, guys? What was in it for us doing that? And I'm letting Fernando and Steven try to put them in the spot to see how they would respond to this. What was in it for us?
Go ahead, Steven.
Go ahead, Steven.
So I think it was always two. One, I think we always actually learned more than we actually taught, because like the questions and how things were being asked always made us think longer and harder about what we were doing on our own. And I think the second piece we used to describe is like, to be able to proficiently teach it, you had to really have the depth and breadth of the knowledge of your subject. And so it actually caused us to deepen our understanding of our practice so we could articulate it so well to our visitors.
Absolutely. And additionally to that, go ahead, Fernando. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, Steven, great you put. So that's fantastic for sharing from your perspective. I would say for me, in addition to what Steven was saying, and I don't know if it was, the maturity of where we were in our careers or what it was, but we always were challenging ourselves to such a degree that even though we were high performing and we were doing some amazing things, we always thought we can always do more, right? And we really pushed ourselves very, very hard. And it was really eye-opening to see some of these organizations, some of them very large, right? And the sort of state in which they were in their transformation. And sort of to see that and say, wow, okay, we are doing pretty good. And we get an opportunity to share our experiences with other folks. That was extremely powerful.
I love it. And what's funny, because me and Marcelo do a lot of training, and we talk to some companies and they're like, oh, we started Agile. I'm like, you have no idea. Your executives came to our shop and then that's how they actually started. But they had pride, which was good. That was good. But it's nice how much it expanded. Like, you guys don't know because maybe you haven't talked to the community the way we have, but there's been so many groups that have come back to us and said, we're so appreciative that you allowed us to go in and now we're doing this, right? So just understand that's very impactful for the community. In addition to that, as you see the IPC experience to the right, it was really nice. We had them kind of, it was a really tight type of exercise for them. We also got a lot of accolades. So you remember some of these accolades, right? Top, 200 company, right? This. But Fernando, if you remember, we were also mentioning Gartner, right?
That's
so
right.
Here we are, the Kanban team showcased a picture of our beautiful, Kanban board and saying, look, this is what the experts, this is how they're doing it. So it's amazing that we can lead so fast, Fernando. Think about it. There's a lot of people just trying to do it, but we were like already ahead of people, of groups. So pretty exciting. Still, there was a lot of learnings. Yes, Marcelo.
Yeah, briefly, fun fact for Steven and the other folks. Well, when Rick and I went up to Seattle to pursue our Kanban trainer credential, in Rick's case study, which you had to present to the creators of the Kanban method, he mentioned some of this stuff, and I remember seeing David Anderson's eyebrows go up when he mentioned that IPC was mentioned in Gartner. So you got a reaction out of him. This is, if you know this guy, he's not the most expressive person.
That is true.
And the fact that he was like, he kind of like sat up in his chair and his eyebrows went up. I'm like, okay, Rick passed. We know he passed. He got his credential. He passed. He got a reaction out of the guy. I just thought I would throw that out there that, Rick is recognized. Rick is recognized.
I wish it was me, guys. That was actually the team, we just kind of shared those things. And I think the hardest part of that whole trip was really hanging out with you, Marcelo. You know, if you're stuck in a car with Marcelo going down, you know, I think it was kind of snowing too. I think it's a big experience. Let's tag that, because that would be a long conversation. So guys, again,
one more thing I wanted to add about that, and let's
Go
not
ahead.
forget, I think all of that was possible, yes, because of the team members and the empowerment we did. But I think the key thing there was the empowerment and the fact that that was coming from George. Without that space to be able to go out and do these kinds of things, we would never would have gotten this far.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, think about it. If you've ever worked with infrastructure people, if you've ever worked with security people, they're the most, you know, they want to go through every single step. This idea of MVPs, those are all foreign. So how do we get that slow process kind of talked through? It was a lot of learnings, And I know we use the word agile, but I don't want you to use the word agile, because it was really about any tool that helps us. Like whatever helps us move forward, let's use it to learn more and to grow more, right? So that was key for us. So awesome. So again, I love the way we were doing that. And just to show you the environment a little bit, it was spectacular to me, just being able to see the open space and the ability to have those conversations, right? So just understand, we actually lowered down the walls. We lowered down the whatever, all those panels. There was really disturbing conversation. So we really, on top of get out of your offices, work as a team, sit next to your team, and now let's just destroy the office space so it could be a lot more easier for you to talk to each other, right? I know most of us right now, a lot of the remote doesn't have this opportunity, and I do feel, you know, kind of sad about that, because there was such a connection that we did, right? Such a connection. All right, moving forward. This is probably the most impactful part of my whole existence at IPC. For me, and I think Steven mentioned it, Fernando mentioned it, Veronica mentioned it, is that personal connection. So we had a lot of things that really connected us together as a group, whether it was activities where we were riding bike, whether I was, running the 5K with my son, whether it was a love attack. This is where we decided to go and help someone in need, to kind of help them with whatever problems that they had, right? This group, this family, really felt that connection, right? So that was something that was really, again, rare for me. I was, in the past, it was more like get into work, okay, and now get back home. This was a family. Now, the picture down at the bottom, I don't know if you noticed, but we shaved our heads, right? And that, to me, there was one of our team members that was going through some challenge, and we decided to shave our heads in solidarity to that person, which again is probably the most emotional thing that that was the first time I ever shaved my head, period, and that everyone was willing to do something like that was so remarkable. And I every single person in that picture, I cherish them with everything, right? So understand that as I'm working with teams, it's all about gratitude. I don't know if you see the stuff on the right. That's actually a gratitude tree. So it's a tree that we put up, and you would put stickies to say, what are you grateful for? And you look at all those leaves, and all those leaves have a story behind them, right? So it's really kind of connecting them to make sure that they all feel, like we're all, a team. Now, that doesn't mean that we play it soft, because the way we work with Agile and some of these teams, if you were ever to go into one of our sessions where we're having what we call a retrospect, right, which is like a lesson learned, they would go at it. They would have uncomfortable conversations. And then they would leave saying, okay, let's move on, right? That was the true essence of working in that environment. It's not let's just hold hands and think that everything was great. And again, I'm going to mention Bob, and Bob is not here to defend himself, but I'm here anyways. Bob, he speaks up. He reaches you at places that you've never thought you would go before, but it makes you better. It makes you better. Here's a situation that happened, and I don't think I've ever seen this before. George, our CIO, accidentally went through one of our retrospective rooms. And I don't know if you remember, Fernando and Steven, there was a room that actually, for some reason, there was a door that you go right through. And he didn't know that we were doing a retro. So as we're doing a retro, Bob goes to George, hey, George, we're doing a retro. Can you please leave? And I was like, wow. Here, that's the kind of empowerment that we're looking at that really showcases. And George was humble to that. It wasn't about getting upset. He was like, great. And he just stepped out. So he actually appreciated that. So that is hard to see an organization that's doing things like that, right? So again, those were the most impactful things. There's more emotional things, but I probably can't talk about it because I do get a little bit more. It's just my voice would leave. But there are some more things that if you take a look at a little bit of the book, you'll see a little bit more of that. I don't know, Stephen or Fernando or Veronica, I don't know if you're still there, but was there any emotional point that you felt was like the most, how do I say this, impactful moment for you? Do you remember an emotional moment that really cascaded to you what IPC represented to you? If there was one that I should have added to the book, what would that have been?
Literally now, second edition. Oh man, I'm having a hard time just picking one. Honestly, it was just like a whole emotional sort of experience all the time. Once we started going down that path, and I think for me personally, right, and maybe this is not as flashy as the ones that you presented here, but having the opportunity to truly hear how my team members felt about certain things, right? And then coming to the realization that there's either some behaviors or certain things that I would do that would negatively impact them, and I wasn't aware. And so that was a moment of incredible self-growth for me. And the fact that it wasn't just that realization, but being able to be so vulnerable where I went to the team and said, hey, I failed you guys, and here's how I did that. And, you would think people would take advantage of that or sort of knock you or kick you when you're down. It was the opposite. They sort of kind of embraced, that sort of vulnerability that I brought to the table, and it just made us so much stronger as a team. It was an incredible experience. I haven't been able to replicate that experience since then, to be honest.
Fernando, I want to add one more thing, and I know you remember it probably very, very vividly. And I even might have written, I don't know if I forgot to put it in the book, but you showed leadership when it came to evaluating yourself. And you started this whole idea. Check this out, guys. He said, I want to get an evaluation for my team, and I want to share it with the whole company. What? He wants to open up his freaking evaluation to the whole company and say, this is how my team feels about me. That I have never seen that in any of the companies that I've worked with. So I'm still looking for that one, right? So that just showed you at a different light. So Fernando, just understand that I have a lot of respect for that. And for you to try to figure that out that way, that was pretty big.
Listen,
yeah.
It sounds a lot better now. It didn't feel that way at that time, okay? I was like, oh my God, I'm done. I better get ready to pack up my box and I'm out of here.
So wait, nobody's hearing this conversation. It's not like it's being recorded all over the world. Don't worry about it. Nobody would know. It's just between you and I, Fernando. We're good. Hey, Stephen, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I would connect two sets of dots in two sets of ways that kind of relate to what you shared. Is we actually opened up and extended beyond just the community that you shared. We started to invite the franchisee restaurant owners in at one point to go through the exact same experience. So to your point of like the community, and really for me, the moving piece out of that, and I know Marcelo will get a laugh because I think he got sick of hearing me talk about, it used to just drive me bonkers when people would talk about IT and the business, like as if they were two separate entities and they were on two separate teams, and like I had to constantly correct people. And to that point, when franchisees would come in and would join us in the experience, like I still remember, like, you know, a database administrator having this conversation with the franchisee about the loyalty and reward platform that we ran and the value of what it meant for a loyal guest and how frequently they came and how that drove profits that allowed them to, you know, pay a sandwich artist 25 cents more an hour. And then that sandwich artist went to university. And like for a database administrator to be so connected to the actual business outcome of the solution that they had been working on and building was something that I had never experienced before. So like, I'm going to connect the dots in those two ways of like the true sense of community and an IT individual really being attached to the business outcomes they were delivering.
I love it. Thank you, Stephen. Greatly appreciate that. All right. So again, with time, I want to make sure we keep going. So again, this to me, out of all the things that we did, this is the one that truly is unforgettable, right? Unforgettable. I'll never forget those times. They're very emotionally connected to me. All right. So moving forward, because this is a journey, right? So understand, even though I put this in a certain order, it didn't all go out that perfect, right? There was a lot of different things that interlapped each other, and there was a lot of loads, right? There was a lot of things that we had to figure out and kind of move through that. So the IPC culture, what does it look like? I just want to show you a little video here. There's a little silly video that they took one time at IPC. And I believe this was kind of published out there, so I don't think that's too much of an issue. But on the left, just understand that is actually a picture of one of the developers actually did this for me. So I was all into yoga. We had yoga classes. I love the boot camp. And I always had my IPC hat, you know, like, hey, IPC for me, right? And we always had that tie. So that was a little point in time where we were a little frustrated. Like tie, remember for IT people, right? Sometimes those ties are a little bit like, wait a minute, we want to come in jeans, we want to come whatever. But I think we finally got to remove the ties. I think that happened, but let me just see what that looks like. Let's see if it comes out because the recording and all that. I hope you can actually see it. If not, I'll walk you through the next one. Let's see.
Yeah, with the corporate 5K coming up, everybody's been training really hard. Has it gotten a little distracting around here? Yeah.
2, 3.
Hey, if you want to win, you got to push your teammates.
Thanks, guys. Now let me see if I can get to the next slide from this slideshow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in a Zoom. It was just a little different. That was actually my car that they were pushing there. If you saw that little joke, and it's hard to kind of understand the full joke, but it was just nice that, you know, it kind of highlighted us, you know, in the activities that we do outside of work, right? So understand, and when we talk about activities outside of work, I know we mentioned us bringing the community, but there was also volunteer services that we did. Like I got to work for something called the Kapow program. So the Kapow, I don't know if you guys are aware of the Kapow program. It's actually, you know, businesses going into schools and kind of help educate these students. And that was also very, very rewarding, right? So we kept doing things to help others, right? That was in our DNA. But as we were helping, what in this case was IT, even though Stephen said, don't mention IT in business. That's unacceptable. And he's absolutely right. But we did a lot of transformation for IT. but the other side of the organization seemed like they weren't there yet, right? So having to help the other side of the business, whether it's HR, whether it's other areas of focus, how does that happen? How do we work through that? So George came up to me and say, hey, I've spoken to Jan and we're looking at helping the other groups out. And that was really exciting for me. I'm like, finally, I'm breaking out of IT. I'm going to something that's different. And it was really, really nice to do some of that work to kind of help them understand what Agile meant from a mindset. But what I can tell you this, they hate to hear techie words. If we are trying to implement Agile, stop using these words that confuse people. Make sure you use something that they can relate to, right? So it was a lot of learnings as we were helping them, and they were gung ho. There were so many opportunities that we saw that people were working in silos. How do we bring those people together so they can work as a team? So that was a pretty interesting exercise to try to get them moving forward, and I think we did really well. But the next part of that was they opened up for me to help some of the leaders in the organization. And I always say this story about the leadership, and I don't know, Fernando and Stephen, if you've had some stories about leaders and some of the dysfunctions in other companies, but there's always leaders that have been very successful, and they've done things a certain way. So me, Mr. Little Guy here, asking them to do something different, that just doesn't feel right. Like, how are you going to tell somebody who's made millions of dollars, has been so successful in their career, and they want to listen to somebody who, have you even bought your first home yet, Rick? So it's an interesting challenge that you have to do. So what was great about this organization is that some of those things we were able to overcome. I'll give you one of my biggest challenges, and I always kind of share that with people. I'm here working with the executive, and I tell the executive, every time you come into this room, everyone becomes quiet. Every time they don't want to debate with you. And if you speak first, nobody ever contradicts you. And I tell this to this person. I'm there with a one-on-one, and what do you think that person says back to me? Basically, he said, good. That's what I was trying to do. And that is a very shock. You as a coach, if you've ever had to experience something like that, you're like speechless. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to help, right? And what I've learned from that, again, is meeting people where they're at. Understand that they have their own journey, and your journey isn't any better than theirs. Okay, so please stop thinking you're better than other people. And it's just a matter of, hey, can we work on this together? So that's been the big humbling thing, to be able to do that and work with this. I can tell you that Stephen here was one of the most amazing coaches that I've had. He's opened the door to me to help others. He didn't have to do that. When you're a leader, when you're an executive, you don't necessarily have to help kind of have people grow outside of their comfort zone. You can keep them down and you can say, just do what you need to do here. But he challenged me, and he allowed me to help other people at different levels of the organization. So I am so humbled by that. And just understand that meant a lot to me in getting my learnings, because Marcelo, Art, you know what it is. We learn a lot of things outside, and then we want to actually implement it. And if a company allows you to implement some of the learnings, you now are truly understand, what can and cannot work. Right. So that was really, again, very humbling for me. So thank you. I know Stephen might have stepped out. I can't see all the pictures, so I don't know if he's there, but hopefully he's there. So moving forward, we had to scale, which was also a major challenge, because you had teams that worked well, but can they work well together? And that was a very challenging moment for us. And I'm going to use Marcelo's saying, be careful using these tools that they slow you down, or they're too much of a bottleneck, or they're not really agile. So all I can recommend is when you use some of these scaling tools, make sure you pick and choose what works for you, right? So that you can get the best out of the tool rather than try to, force people into something that's actually going to hurt them, right? So that was a lot of my learnings. As we were learning how to scale, there were ways that we tweaked it to work for us, right? So, but the interaction that we got in some of those sessions, Fernando, were through the roof. Like, you talk about teams talking to each other, interacting, and having those conversations, and having the executives in the middle so they can quickly make a decision. Like, that was pretty cool. So if you've ever had an opportunity to do a big room planning and really make that work for you, where they're productive and they're not just sitting there saying, there's nothing to do here, why am I wasting my time, right? That was an interesting exercise. If you see over there to the right, and I don't know how many of you guys actually played football, but I actually played football. And those are like little things that you put on your helmet as you succeed. So Marcelo, Art, what I did with that, and Carol, you too, and those are the only people I can see on my screen. I can't see the rest. Those are builds. When we deploy, it shows how we're deploying, right? So the magnitude of saying we deliver, look at us. You can showcase we're delivering. Yeah, it gets a little bit competitive. Okay, that's all right. But it actually showcases that we're doing something. So pretty cool. I'm going to pause a second. I know I've been talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions? I know I didn't ask any questions before, but I'm going to pause a second. That means I'm doing a great. Marcelo, no chat. All right, that means either I'm doing great or they fell asleep on us. Whichever one came through.
Keep going.
All right, so this is really the end of this conversation for this specific book, right? The last journey of this so-called, transformation for me, this, again, like I told you, this is an 8-year transformation, was me going out on my own and figuring this out. And luckily I had an amazing partner, Regina Batista, right? That helped me kind of cement me and compliment me, right? So I got to actually do some keynotes, shared the journey of what we did. And we have a lot more. We got to figure it out. I just want you to know that there's a lot of struggles out there. I wish this was just a perfect story of harmony going all the way up. And there were so many bumps in the road, so many things that pulled you down, but you had to get back up. That grit is what really helps you move on to this. And if you all decide one day to start your own business, you'll know that's what you got to do. You wake up in the morning, you got to do accounting today, you do accounting. You got to jump into that, you do whatever you need to do. And that's what it takes to succeed, guys. We're looking for innovation. But more importantly than you trying to make it on your own, if you're not partnering with the right people, if you're not getting your community together, there's no way you're going to be able to succeed in the world that we see today, right? So again, I'm so thankful that you gave me the opportunity to talk to you guys. And hopefully my next book would be a book on the next transformation that I did. So I did something with track foam that I thought was really, really amazing as well. But honestly, this transformation destroys, how do I say this? My eagerness to work with other people, because they don't mimic this whole change in culture. I've not been able to see a company that's been able to do what IPC did in that time frame. Like the accomplishments, the unity that we saw, I have never seen that anywhere, right? So again, I'm looking forward to figuring it out, but it also stains me because one of the things as a coach, and Marcelo, you have to all agree with that, is sometimes you have to clear out the past because you're working with a new customer and you need to, again, work with them where they think they can achieve. So I appreciate you guys giving me this time to share my experience with what I did, and the amazing people that I met. Do we have any last questions before I take a nice little group picture too? Again, this is being streamed. I'm curious how that's going to work, to see if that actually worked out well, if it just came out a black screen with no image or no voice. We'll see how that comes out. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to share at the end?
Hey, Rick.
Yes,
So
Olga.
it's Olga. How are you?
Wonderful.
So quick question. Would you consider the IPC Agile adoption to have been successful, or how long did it take before you felt that you had a successful implementation?
Do I feel that it was successful?
Mm-hmm.
If I answer that in the time that I was there, I would say yes. But if I tell you that for some reason the journey of IPC has pivoted and adjusted, I think there were still more learnings that could have been done. I'm not complacent. I always think there's more, and there's more we could have done. So I think we did good with the time that we had. I think we did amazing. But I never like to say that was the final step. There's always things to improve. There's always things to get better. And then go ahead, Fernando.
If I can add to your answer, Rick.
Yes.
Olga, maybe this will give some more clarity. I think in my perspective, because the changes were so drastic and so profound, I think there was probably, 1 to 2 years of a lot of chaos. Okay. And at the end of that chaos, there was a measurable difference in the outcome and the performance of the teams. Okay. And the alignment to the business and the value that we were delivering. So from that perspective, and keep in mind, Agile at the time is not known as it was today, right? It was just a very foreign concept. And I think it was probably like a 2-year thing. But then part of that transformation was we now had this mindset of continuous improvement. And if you recall, I mentioned in one of my previous statements that we always felt like we were never there, even though we were so far away, because we were just wired to constantly say, how can we do this better? How can we optimize? What can we change? Can we drive some new learnings from every retro? And we actually did. And so it was more of a mindset or cultural shift more than anything else. Hopefully that gives you some clarity.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I appreciate the additional feedback. Then my other question for you, Rick, is thinking of the most challenging person, executive that you had to quote unquote convince about Agile and this new way of thinking. Obviously, even today, there's still people that are ingrained in, that coveted corner office, and having, a leader come in and kind of throw everybody into the mix on the floor. Some people are a little bit resentful about that, or they may still feel a little burned about it. How did you deal with, and were you successful, or was there anyone you haven't been able to turn to drink the Kool-Aid, if you will, for the Agile Kool-Aid?
Yeah, there are people that you cannot convince, and not just this transformation, but in many other transformations, there's people that we've had to get rid of in other companies because they just were slowing down and could never adapt to that. But I want to make sure that we understand this, that even if you're not convinced, but if you take a step and you allow other people to at least help your teammates out, that's a win for me. It's when you close the door completely, that's where there's no way to work around that, right? But so I think there's degrees. Now, the funny part is that, and I have because of this book, I've actually had a chance to speak to some of the executives that I didn't really have as great a relationship maybe as I should have had, and they're still stuck. There's some people they're still in their mindset of this is the way I think and this is the way I believe, and I'm going to tell you a really kind of sad story, but I used to actually work for the Children's Psychiatric Center. And and behavior issues, there's no way you can help people when they're convinced and they're moving in their own direction. You just have to work through it. But it's not something that me as a coach can even be qualified to kind of help people that don't want the help. Because that was the big challenge I always asked. Do they really want the help? Are they really interested in learning more or experimenting, right? Because it's not about, again, I don't have the answer. It's more, can we work through learning new things and seeing how it comes out, right? I wish I had a better answer for you on that one.
No, good enough. I hope I'm on your second book.
You are, Olga.
You track phone experience.
You are, and we have and when you said that question, now you know who came to mind. I won't mention it now, but that book would mention that very closely. So, but thank you, Olga. I love you, and you've been very supportive.
I have your book. We have to get together so you can sign it for me.
For sure. Again, thank you, Olga. Anyone else that has a question? All right.
Rick,
Yes.
congratulations.
Thank you,
It's
Karen.
perfect. Now I look at this work done, and I know that all the team helps you. Also, it is amazing how it could be real right now. The way you explain all this experience. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Carol. And I know that we have lots of talks. So, and what's weird is that we missed so much in this conversation. There's still so much conversation. We just tiptoe through what it went through. But one of the hardest things, Carol, was to explain to people what we were going through. Like when we talked about the IPA experience, like no one understands it. It's like we're saying things and they look at us like, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. You guys really are empowered. Yeah, sure. Like they don't understand that. And they run Agile a certain way. That's why sometimes it gets me very depressed when I hear some of the poor Agile implementations where people aren't looking at culture. They don't even know what that is. They don't even know what that represents. But thank you, Carol. Really appreciate that. Any other questions? All right. So Marcelo, can we take a snapshot so we can post?
We can take a snapshot. But before we take a snapshot, I want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe and comment on the YouTube channel. We really appreciate that social media love. Thank you so much.
Love it. Thank you. So I don't know if Josue's still there. If somebody could take a snapshot, I would greatly appreciate it. I don't know if we're prepared because I have like so many things going on right now. With
if everybody's go for it then.
I'm gonna count to 3.
So we normally turn our camera.
Which box you wanna go for?
So we turn our cameras on if you guys would like to turn on your camera. And Joe is showing some food. Joe, are you cooking or something? I don't know what's going on over there, Joe. Veronica, again, I appreciate you, Veronica.
He's showing his kitchen. He's not showing himself. He's showing his kitchen.
I don't know what he's cooking there, but we're hungry. We're hungry. All right, Joe, flip around, Joe, so you can say hi.
Joe, are you throwing a party or something like that?
That's what it looks like.
Not on my phone, usually. Is that better?
Yeah, no, I don't know. No, it's not better now. No, it's not better. No.
Not better.
All right, guys.
Okay, I'm gonna count to 3. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay.
All right. So guys, what we do.
Posting it now and I'll send it to them.
Yeah. So what we normally do is we put that in LinkedIn, and then we like it. So again, we are all about giving back to the community. We've been doing this for a long time. I appreciate your time here with us. And this is a tight community. This is what we do every week. And if you'd like to join us on Saturday, we'd love to have you there. So really appreciate, like we always like to say, Marcelo, you don't have to go home, but
You gotta go.
you gotta get out of Zoom. All right. All right. So
You don't
guys.
have to go home, but you gotta go.
All right. So again, I hope I'm able to stop the streaming thing. I don't know how it came out. I don't know if anybody was looking at LinkedIn to see how it came out, or it's coming out right now because I don't think we stopped sharing. So
I was monitoring the YouTube channel. And
Okay.
You were coming across just fine there.
okay.
Yeah, I was on the YouTube channel before I came over here because I didn't see anybody
over there. So I said, well, if I have a question, I don't know how I'm going to communicate with anyone because I was the only one there. So, but yeah, you were coming across perfectly on the YouTube.
Again, we're practicing. We're setting this up. This is our first time actually trying to set that. We'll see if it becomes successful.
Next time I'll join through YouTube then.
I don't know. I haven't tried it. I gotta see what the experience is, YouTube or any of the other channels.
Yeah, the experience is it's about 7 seconds behind the live YouTube. I mean, the live Zoom.
Wow.
It's delayed through StreamYard for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons. And stuff like that. But like I said, please like, subscribe, hit that up arrow and pass it along because people can come back and view this on YouTube at any given time. And it's still a bigger platform than LinkedIn. So
Absolutely.
we really appreciate the folks that coming through it.
Love it. All right, guys.
We're still showing your screen there, by the way. On YouTube, it's still showing the slide deck, just so you know.
I don't know what we're doing, guys. Okay, but we gotta go. We gotta go. I hope we can close this out.
If we're still streaming through StreamYard, people are still hearing this conversation. There you go. Now you turn it off.
Turned it off. All right.
They've heard this entire